And so for this episode, I'm happy to welcome Fatimah Coppin.
Hey guys, I'm Fatima. So I knew I wanted to go into science. My first option, or the first, career I was looking at was actually research. So I thought that it was kind of like a duty in a way where it's like, okay, like if I have multiple backgrounds and if I'm a person of color and there are so many communities in need, why not just spread my wings farther than research and, go into the med field and
maybe certain things that some physicians may not be as attuned to or as quickly attuned to. You're maybe even a little more attentive to things that other physicians might overlook a little bit.
It was all jokes and laughs and everything, but then when you transition into college and as you get older and older, you realize
Hey, my name is Charpentier, and welcome to Less Than 3%, where we talk about healthcare, my journey to become a physician, and really anything from the perspective of a black male pursuing medicine. And in this episode, I have a really great interview that I'm excited to get into. And so without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know about the guests for this interview. So the person we have today is a black and Filipino pre-med student. She's in her final year at the Sophie Davis School of Biomedical Education and will be graduating with her bachelor's in biomedical sciences this semester. She will be taking a research year to conduct translational neuroscience research at the Feinstein Institutes of Northwell, and then transitioning into medical school at the CUNY School of Medicine. She also plays Division III volleyball at the City College of New York, where she served as team captain for the 2023 season. And so for this episode, I'm happy to welcome Fatimah Coppin.
hey guys, I'm Fatima.
Yeah, so I know I gave a bit of an introduction. Do you mind letting everybody who's listening here a little glimpse into who you are?
Okay. Well, the bio says it all, but my name is Fatima. I attend the Sophie Davis School of Biomedical Education. I'm in my third year, and I have decided that instead of going straight into matriculation, I'm going to be taking a gap year where I'll be doing research. Yeah.
Cool. So there's a couple things I want to ask you about, probably that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, just to kind of set things off, what exactly would you say sparked that interest for you into becoming a physician? Like, what got that started in terms of you wanting to go into medicine?
Mm-hmm. So I guess I wasn't really one of those people who were like, oh, I wanted to be like a physician since I was little. It wasn't really like that. For me, it was more of I had a really strong passion for the sciences. When I took AP Bio in high school, that's when I was like, oh, this is something that I'm good at and I really enjoy learning about. And I found myself asking more questions about it as opposed to other subjects. So I knew I wanted to go into science. My first option, or the first, career I was looking at was actually research. So I wanted to do research for a good period of time. I did research in high school. That's really all I could think about, and that's really all I wanted. And I guess the turning point for me wanting to go into medicine was I did HPrep when I was a junior in high school, and so I was able to learn about health professions. So I got to see, science outside of just research and more of on caring for patients and giving back and servitude. And so I guess I never really let go of my love for research. It was more of like learning about disparities in medicine and age prep. And as someone who's like Black, Filipino, Muslim, a woman, I thought that if this is something that if I enjoy science and I really enjoyed age prep. I enjoyed like learning about the different fields of medicine, and we were able to talk to like doctors and everything. And I thought that I guess like with my position in STEM and like the world of medicine, like I feel like it would be good representation. So I thought that it was kind of like a duty in a way where it's like, okay, like if I have multiple backgrounds and if I'm a person of color and there are so many communities in need, you know, why not just spread my wings farther than research and, you know, go into the med field and service others.
Wow, so that's a lot you just said there. Like, I'm thinking about that. I feel like there's so many aspects of that we could get. That I definitely thought was interesting. Let me ask you this. So you mentioned how like one of the things that kind of took you from that space of wanting to go into research and ultimately into medicine was a lot of the different like health disparities and things that you were able to learn about within the medical world. What would you say, or what type of influence do you feel like you're potentially able to have when it comes to those aspects of medicine?
I feel like definitely, I guess speaking on that patient-physician trust, like the relationship and the trust that patients have with their physicians and trusting them with information and being comfortable enough to tell them things. I feel like that especially is something that I could lend to medicine in general, because it's not every day that you see someone who looks like you. Like when you go to the doctor, like usually you're more comfortable with people who look like you, or you know, when you're a person of color in medicine, like you're more attuned to these disparities. You're more aware of the, if your patient's, for instance, like if your patient's black and if you're black, then you kind of, there's just this connection that you have with your patient, and they trust you a little more with information. And so I felt like as someone who isn't seen a lot in the field, there's not a lot of people who look like me in the field. And so like if as someone who, I feel like for patients who wear the hijab or who are black or who are Filipino, there's medicine is more than just like, you know, like caring for the patient, but it's also being able to understand where they come from and their environment and how that plays a role in their health. And also, I guess like listening to stories of like my family members and how, and like what they've gone through in terms of like health disparities, and how, for instance, like my usually like growing up, my father, like his grandfather would always take him to a black physician because, you know, it was just like there was always just this mistrust. And so the one time that my dad did go to like a white physician, the physician didn't tell him about like his high blood pressure. And it's just things like that where like you like a lot of patients, like they kind of build this mistrust, and I want to be that physician that, you know, like lets them know, you know, it's okay for you to tell me things, like I'm here for you and things like that.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds to me, you can correct me if I'm like not getting this right. So it sounds to me almost like you're looking at it from a perspective of being able to build a particular type of connection with a lot of different patients, where some people might either where some people might just outright, as you mentioned with the example you gave, maybe miss out on particular things because they might not perhaps be as attentive at times, or maybe certain things that some physicians may not be as attuned to or as quickly attuned to. Given the background that you see yourself coming from, you feel that you're going to be able to really kind of build that connection in a way where you're maybe even a little more attentive to things that other physicians might overlook a little bit.
Yeah. Just things like that. And representation is really important. And if I'm in a position where I can put myself in a lot of people's shoes, of a lot of people's different cultures, like I feel like it's best for me to, you know, go into that route rather than just like doing research full time, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. So I definitely like how, because I always try to stress at times on the podcast, so I feel like the importance of actual like connection with patients is really the thing that drives medicine forward, and it's not just kind of handing out some prescriptions or doing this thing or that thing, but also understand that there's like a human connection that you're trying to build, and you want to be able to make sure you're not missing out on whatever key things you want, you know, to be understood between you and your patient. So, so doing a little bit of a pivot, we talked a bit about like your passions for medicine, what kind of got you to where you are now. So I know obviously you're in your final year, you know, of undergrad. You're about to be going into med school soon, so congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So what do you feel like have maybe been some of the biggest challenges to you, or biggest adjustments that you've made as you've gone through this point of pursuing that BS and that bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences?
I definitely changed a lot in the past 3 years. Especially, attending like a small school rather than like a bigger school. But I guess one of the biggest things is, I guess, kind of keeping your values as a person. I feel like as you get older, things get a little bit more serious. That's what I realized in high school. Like, you know, it was all jokes and laughs and everything. But then when you transition into college and as you get older and older, you realize that there's so much more responsibility, especially going into the field of medicine. For me, I did struggle a bit with, you know, like keeping my values intact and like, you know, like understanding like who I really am and understanding how to prioritize different parts of my life. For instance, family, academics, you know. As the academics get harder, you see your family less, so you have to kind of balance that out and be like, okay, like I have to put my for me at least, like it's always family first. And so understanding like, you know, when to go home from campus and like when to spend time with my family while also balancing academics. So that aspect of it, and also just understanding how to be an adult. Like for me, it's like I'm 20 years old, so like, you know, I just exited my teen years, but also it's kind of just hitting me that like there are just things that I can't really get away with, or things that I have to start like, you know, like paying attention to, things that, and it's just little things that that you kind of just have to, that, well, I learned that I have to fix to be, I guess, a better person and a better physician in the long run. Just things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I can relate, especially to that part of, you know, trying to make sure you're still seeing your family and you're still connected with the people you guys stay connected with.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of times that can even be, you know, a bit of a difficulty in itself. How would you say you've been able to like practically approach some of the challenges that you've seen like throughout your time in school so far?
For one, it's definitely kind of learning, I guess, when to take a break, because sometimes I think about it, well, when I was younger I used to be like, oh, like I'm just gonna grind as much as I can. Now it's more of like I have to learn when to stop, and that's also kind of learning, I guess, about who you really are. So like for me, you know yourself best, right? And for me, it was kind of like understanding, okay, like can I get away with taking a break for this long? Can I get away with not studying for this long to spend time with my family? I guess like calculating ahead is something that I kind of learned to do over time. Sometimes like my family would be like, you know, like when are you gonna come back home? So it's just like learning, okay, like I'm gonna go back home, but I have to like study a little bit and not telling myself, okay, like I'm gonna stay here, I can't see you guys for this amount of time, just things like that. And because at the end of the day, it's like it's always just one exam, and you know, like your family is not always gonna be with you. Just things like that. Yeah.
No, that's definitely a good point, especially in terms of like the priorities aspect.
Yeah.
You're talking about, you know, the fact that, especially as I always hear, like the further you get along the medical path, you're constantly gonna have all these different challenges and different things bombarding you that you have to overcome. But ultimately, you know, your family is, you know, your family's always going to be there, that and they're going to need your support as well. And so you want to always make sure like those priorities are in order.
Yeah.
So to slowly wrap things up a little bit, what would you say are probably your long-term aspirations as a physician? I know you kind of got into that a little bit on one aspect, but what would you say in terms of like the long-term goals that you want to accomplish?
Long-term wise, I definitely want to be able to, I guess, it's a good question. Long-term wise, I definitely do want to like stay in research, because research was, I guess, like my first love, and it's just something that I see myself in the future doing. But now that I'm in medicine, long term, I do want to see the things that I research grow and like impact people. So like I do want to do like translational research, and I want to be able to use the patient-physician interactions, the interactions that I have with my patients, and kind of learn and understand what they need and apply that to my research. So I want to put like the patient first, and then the research that I want to perform, and also just being a better listener. I feel like there's always room for improvement, and as you go into medicine, like you're always listening, and it's just a skill that you learn to improve over time. But I feel like I definitely want to get to a point where like I'm an expert at that and I understand what my patient needs immediately, or like I understand them better, and I want to keep that relationship with my patients. Like I want to be able to talk to them. I want them to be comfortable with me. That's honestly the ultimate dream, like for them to like, be able to trust me with things, and for them to come back to me and like thank me, or like I want to treat like them and like maybe like their kids and like their family, and like just be able to see and the impact like in real life. Like I don't just want to treat a patient and then be like, okay, like bye. Like I want to be able to, like leave an impact on that patient and remember them. Yeah. As hard as that probably is, due to like like physician shortage and like the short amount of time that you see your patients. But I want to be a better listener and like and just let the patient know that they can trust me. That's like the ultimate goal.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely key, and I think that's what allows for really a better physician workforce in the long run. Physicians that are willing and are able to like sit down and just focus in on like, just physicians are able to focus in on what the patient needs and listening to them and making sure that that patient is being heard to the best of their ability. Yeah. So I think that's key. And I think it might sound like we have a future physician scientist, perhaps.
That's the goal. Like for me, like it was always like research, but then when I found out that there's a career where I could talk to people and like interact with them and like serve them, I was like, that's just something that I really want to go into. I guess like definitely more than research, but I still do want to venture into research and stuff like that.
That's good. So to kind of wrap things up, I definitely want to say thanks for taking the time and the sacrifice to be on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
It was a great conversation. I definitely think everybody listening, for sure was able to get a lot from this as well. So I guess to wrap that up, I hope if you're listening to this that you really enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.